This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. Are you a hockey fan? Then you'll love Eric Zweig's new book, Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. It's a treasure trove of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave even the most devoted puckhead astounded. The intense rivalries, epic showdowns, and historic clashes that shaped the NHL's early years, it's all in there. Zweig uncovers the true stories that helped shape the sport, ensuring that you will never look at hockey the same way again. Check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. You can find more info and more podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. You know, football season is cranking up, and if you're a football fan, then you may enjoy Pigskin Dispatch, hosted by Darren Hayes, dedicated to exploring the history of professional and collegiate football. Find Pigskin Dispatch wherever you get your podcasts. This is your host for This Day in Sports History, Steve White. And on this day in 1984, it was the wildest and ugliest brawl in Major League Baseball history. The San Diego Padres were playing in Atlanta against the Braves, and this was the final game of a 4-game series. These teams were 1-2 in the NL West at the time, but it wasn't much of a race. After winning Saturday night, the Padres had stretched their lead over the Braves in the West to 10.5 games. In that game the night before, Padres second baseman Alan Wiggins kept laying down bunt after bunt. Nothing wrong with that really, but Braves pitcher Pascual Perez, who was charting pitches in the dugout, took umbrage at that and started screaming at Wiggins to swing the bat, questioning his manhood a little bit. Wiggins yelled some things back to Perez, and that was what really planted the seed that grew into the ugly brawl, or really brawls, that happened on this day. Pascual Perez got the start in this Sunday afternoon affair. The first man up to the plate was Alan Wiggins. First pitch of the day, Perez hit Wiggins in the back. Wiggins headed to first, but a few more words were exchanged between the two. In the second inning, Perez came to the plate. Padres starter Ed Whitson retaliated and threw one behind Perez. Perez was not happy about that, but he really got freaked out when Padres catcher Terry Kennedy retrieved the ball and started walking up behind him. At that point, Perez ripped off his helmet, but kept the bat in his hand. He was dancing around and holding it like a weapon. Now, if he doesn't do that, maybe this ends right there. Both teams were warned, no more purpose pitches, nerves were settled down, and Whitson went on to strike out Perez to end the inning with the Braves up 3-0. In the fourth inning, Whitson tried to hit Perez again. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, and Perez stepped out of the way each time. After the third one thrown at his knees, home plate umpire Steve Ripley threw out Whitson and manager Dick Williams. Greg Booker replaced Whitson on the mound and resumed the task of trying to plunk Perez. In the sixth inning, Booker threw one high and tight, which Perez managed to dodge once again, and Booker and replacement manager Ozzie Virgil were ejected. With the Braves leading 5-1 in the eighth inning, this whole situation could have been diffused by sending up a pinch hitter for Perez, who was scheduled to hit second in the bottom half. Instead, Perez strolls to the plate to face Padres reliever Craig Lefferts. So, quick recap. 3 plate appearances, 5 pitches thrown at Perez, none have connected. The message had been sent but apparently not received by the intended target. So Lefferts threw his first pitch to Pascual, and it hit him in his left elbow. And that's when it all went south. Ripley tossed Lefferts along with the third Padres manager of the day, Jack Kroll. As he was doing that, the Braves bench cleared and headed straight for the mound. The Padres bench cleared, and then there were punches thrown all over the infield. Perez casually walked back to the Braves dugout and waited for the melee to end. It lasted 10 minutes, but one guy who was not ready to give up the fight was former Vietnam veteran, former slow-pitch softball player discovered and signed to a free agent contract, and sitting on the bench for the Padres on this night, Champ Summers. He broke away from a Bob Watson bear hug and sprinted toward the Braves dugout, ready to lay some justice down on Perez. He was met by Braves third baseman Bob Horner, who was on the disabled list at this point with a broken hand. Horner had actually started out the night in street clothes up in the press box, but when he saw the repeated attempts to hit Perez, he went down to the locker room, suited up, and was in position to protect his guy. Horner confronted Summers, pushed him away from the dugout, and then things really got ugly as a fan threw a cup of soda at Summers. Another fan had jumped the wall and jumped on Summers' back. And then a guy in yellow Hager slacks and a white sports shirt, no doubt cologned up with Ralph Lauren's polo for a night out with his girl and lubricated with a couple of Miller Lights, jumped into the fray. Things looked like they settled down a little bit, but somehow, someway, another fight broke out behind home plate. Finally, things calmed down. Soda-throwing guy and yellow pants guy both got arrested and escorted off the field. The guy who jumped on Summers' back snuck into the Braves dugout, and then he was able to sneak back into the stands. More ejections followed. Summers and Padres outfielder Bobby Brown were ejected, along with Braves players Gerald Perry, Rick Mailer, and Steve Bedrosian. Haha, but fight night at the ballpark was not done yet. Perez was replaced in the ninth inning by Donnie Moore. The second pitch he threw plunked Greg Nettles, and Nettles charged the mound. Benches cleared again, and there was chaos on the field again. Multiple fights, one between the mound and home plate, another in front of the Braves dugout. Kurt Bavacqua got in some good punches. He was eventually ejected. And at that point, umpiring crew chief John McSherry tossed Braves manager Joe Torre, the pitcher Donnie Moore, and then he ordered both benches to be cleared. Players had to go back into the tunnel or to the locker room, and they would be available, but they just couldn't be on the bench. As Padres players attempted to clear the field and then clear the bench, more drinks from fans were thrown at them. 3 more fans got arrested. Order was finally restored. Gene Garber came on in relief, and when center fielder Dale Murphy made a diving catch in the ninth inning, the game was finally over. In total, 17 players were ejected, 12 Padres, 5 Braves. 4 coaches were tossed. Interestingly, 2 players who were not ejected in this ball game were Pascual Perez and Alan Wiggins, the 2 that got this whole thing started. San Diego manager Dick Williams was suspended for 10 days and fined $10,000 for ordering the Code Red, while Braves manager Joe Torre was suspended for 3 days and fined $1,000. There were a variety of fines and suspensions to both Braves and Padres rosters. And that puts a cap on the worst and wildest brawl in Major League Baseball history that happened on this day in 1984. On this day in 1978, New England Patriots wide receiver Darryl Stingley was paralyzed in a preseason game against the Oakland Raiders. The Patriots were in Oakland for the second preseason game. Steve Grogan was the quarterback, and the Patriots kept looking over the middle, probing for a little weakness in the Raiders' secondary. It was the second quarter. The starters would not be playing much longer. The younger guys trying to make the roster would get most of the playing time. Just a few more plays. Stingley had been the Patriots' leading receiver the year before with 39 catches for 657 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had a spot on the roster. He didn't need to impress head coach Chuck Fairbanks. He just needed to work a little rust off, a few more plays. The next series, he'd be enjoying the California night from the bench, thinking about football or something else. Grogan lofted a pass over the middle. His intended target? Darryl Stingley. But the pass was a little low and out of his reach. Stingley dove for it, and that's when Jack Tatum, the man nicknamed the Assassin, hit him, lowering his right shoulder and collapsing Stingley's neck. Stingley fell to the turf and did not move. Team doctors from both teams rushed to him on the field. An ambulance was summoned. He was taken to the hospital where surgery was performed, but it could not fix the problem: a compressed spinal cord to go along with a break between his fourth and fifth cervical vertebrae. He would never walk again. The first person to get to the hospital that night was John Madden, the head coach of the Raiders. He was surprised that nobody from the Patriots was there. No players, no coaches, no front office staff. He found out a few minutes later that the Patriots were already on the plane about to take off for their return to New England. Madden became a friendly face to Stingley, somebody there for him to tell him that things were going to be all right, though everybody knew that they weren't. During one visit, Madden actually discovered something was wrong with Stingley's ventilator. He hurried a nurse in to take a look, and the nurse fixed the issue, more than likely saving Stingley's life. And then, get this, Stingley was not officially under contract with New England, though he had verbally agreed with Fairbanks on a contract extension the day before the Raiders game. Patriots owner Billy Sullivan said that since Stingley was not signed to a contract, he wasn't a Patriot, and therefore the Sullivan family was not liable for anything and refused to cover his medical bills. That situation with the Sullivan family and how they were dealing with Stingley's situation led to Fairbanks walking away from his contract at the end of the season because of the callousness of Billy Sullivan to not take care of one of their own. But Madden continued to be around. When Stingley went home, Madden would show up on occasion. He'd be there on holidays when he could. He was there when many others were not. And he kept that relationship with Stingley going until Darryl Stingley died in 2007. Stingley's death was a direct result of the quadriplegia he suffered on this day in 1978. In 1973, it was a record, and then it wasn't a record, but it became a record later. But on this day in 1973, Jack Nicklaus won the PGA Championship for what at the time was considered his 14th major tournament win, topping Bobby Jones. Back when Jones was playing golf, the U.S. Amateur and British Amateur were considered major tournaments, and Jones racked up 13 of them. As a kid, Nicklaus studied Jones and then set his sights to better that mark. When Nicklaus shot a final round 67 at Canterbury Golf Club in Beechwood, Ohio, he finished 4 shots ahead of Bruce Crampton for what was recognized by those in the know as his 14th major tournament win. Now, 2 of those 14 were wins in the U.S. Amateur. It was decided a while later that Nicklaus's win on this day was really his 12th major win, and it wasn't until his win at the 75 PGA Championship that Nicklaus officially passed Jones on the all-time list. The Golden Bear would eventually win 18 major tournaments and is still the all-time leader. And on this day in 2007, Tiger Woods would win his second straight PGA Championship for his 13th major tournament win, equaling Jones. Playing in scorching heat at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Woods held off a charge by Woody Austin to win by 2 shots. And time now for today's non-sports fun fact. Have you ever heard of the Voynich manuscript? It is a 240-page medieval tome written in an unknown language that has baffled scholars and codebreakers for years and remains undeciphered. That's all for today. Thanks for checking back in. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.